Hey, good evening, and welcome to The Unstoppable Singer. My name is Danielle Tucker. I'm your host. I'm a singer, a vocal coach, and a lead singer with the Mighty Untouchables Band. The Unstoppable Singer is a live interview style show where I follow the lives of real life professional singers. And these singers have made some incredible achievements in their lives and careers. And we talk about the challenges and triumphs that come with a career under the bright lights and learn what being unstoppable looks like to them. So if this sounds like it's for you, then stick around because we're going to jump right in now. And I'm going to introduce you to my wonderful guest tonight. It's Hannah Lewis. Hannah is a vocalist, songwriter, arranger, composer, and music educator. She sings and arranges music in a variety of settings, including film sessions and recording dates, live performances everywhere from the Ojai Festival to Carnegie Hall, and LA local chorale ensembles Los Robles, Master Chorale, and Tonality. And in between singing in the studios and on stages, she writes and records original music with her vocal band From the Roots. So without further ado, let me bring on Hannah. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. It's crazy that it's already the new year. It's wild.
It's already 4 days into the new year.
I know.
Which is crazy because
Yeah.
my daughter was telling me when she got in the car after school, she's like, yeah, today's the 4th, tomorrow's the 5th. We're supposed to wear this, and that. And I'm like, today is the 4th for real?
Yeah, it's going fast.
Already going fast. Well, so speaking of the new year, we just closed out 2022. Why don't you give us a little year in review? Tell us about some of the highlights of your 2022, and you can maybe point out some lows you had to overcome as well, if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking me this question because I feel like I'm a little overdue for truly sitting down and thinking about everything that I've gone through. I know a lot of creative people and people in general are really bad at like actually sitting and taking account of all the wins that you've had and all the things that you've done.
Yes.
So trying to be better about that. This year, this last year, one of the first things that happened this last year was that I officially became a member of SAG-AFTRA, which is very exciting.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that was like January, February. I turned 25 last year, which was a big milestone, halfway through the 20s. Mid-20s feels very different from early 20s. It's hard to explain, but I'm sure everyone who has been there can relate. A lot of singing with choirs. I did some of my first SAG sessions as an actual SAG member, no longer Taft-Hartley paperwork to do. So that was very exciting. I got to sing at one of the studios at Warner Brothers, on the Warner Brothers lot. I got to record at East West. What was the other studio that I recorded at recently? The Bridge. I've just been like checking off on these list of these completely iconic and amazing recording studios in the city that I am so blessed to be able to say that I've sung at now. Very exciting. Yeah, a lot of exciting things in my career this past year. And personal life has been good. I don't know. It was a good year because the year before was when I was going through a lot of my health issues and going through cancer treatment. So as I've been kind of reflecting on the past year, I feel like 2021 was the year when it was just kind of all about getting through and being really just strong, and therefore not really being able to truly go through emotionally everything that was happening and like process it. And so this year has been all about processing, been in therapy all year. So it's been a big year of just like growing, healing, and just kind of building myself and also my career little by little. And I've really enjoyed every minute of it. I mean, obviously singing and making music in all ways is what I love to do. So any opportunity that I get to do that is a win.
That's great. That's great. And I'd love to touch on the health issues and jump back there in just a little bit. But before we do that, I love the way you've described your year as being kind of a healing year, a transformative year, a growing year. And at 25, that is like, to me, that honestly, that was my favorite age that I went through. It was something about that year that is just like, you really turn a corner at that point. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you probably grew up a little quicker than you were expecting to in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad to see you come out of the end of this year, feeling good. How is this year looking for you? Do you have anything coming up that you'd like to talk about?
I have a few performances with Tonality coming up. I mean, we have our typical season that we are halfway through now with my choir Tonality. We did 2 concerts in the fall and winter, and then we'll have a couple in the spring and early summer this year. And then a couple extra performances that I'll be doing with them. Tonality is like all over the map. We do our own concerts, and then sometimes we get contracted for movies and albums, and sometimes we are performing works by composers, just like at venues. We just like get hired as a choir sometimes. So always a fun ride. So we have some things scheduled in the next couple months with that.
Nice.
And my band From the Roots, we've been remote recording our album. So yeah, the funny thing about us is that we were a remote project before the pandemic even started. Like, we have always been remote. Most of the members of the band live in Texas. One lives in Arkansas. I'm the only one that lives in California. We met through, like, we're all college a cappella kids. And we
Nice.
met through, yeah, big a cappella nerd. We met through this a cappella intensive that we all did several years ago and formed this band. And the goal was always to create original a cappella music. So that's what we've been doing. And we got together over the summer. We had like this weekend where 12 hours a day, we were songwriting, recording demos, just getting everything set so that we could all go home to our respective places and do the official recordings remotely. We've been using this amazing software. I wish I knew the name of it, because I'm sure many musicians would love to use this, but it's basically the software where someone can have a DAW set up on their computer, like Pro Tools or whatever, and someone on a completely different computer, could be anywhere as long as you have a strong Wi-Fi connection, can be recording as long as you have like a mic and all that. You don't even have to have a DAW yourself. You don't have to have Pro Tools or Logic or anything, but you can record through this software directly into their DAW wherever they are. I
Wow.
know.
So it serves as like a bridge to their DAW.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So like they can run the session. So like one of our members is like, we have a few members that are really great at mixing and recording, which is awesome. But one of our members has been kind of spearheading that whole process. So we were remote recording, which with that software is like so easy. And I was able to like hear the track that I was recording to and the click and all of that. And the latency was like almost zero. It's really awesome. So we've been doing that, and hopefully the album will be all recorded and all finished. We're hoping for in a few months, maybe by summer, early summer, to be safe. But because, we all have our lives and we're all obviously in different places. But this project From the Roots has been something that we have really just come back to continuously over the years. It's taken so many iterations and we've done so many things. I mean, early on, we were headlining scholastic a cappella festivals and doing that whole thing as a professional a cappella group. And then we pivoted more away from creating a cappella versions of songs that exist to wanting to do original music. And so it's been something where it's never the first priority for everybody, because we all have our own lives, but it's always something that we care about a lot and are always going to make time for. So it's a slow process, but I know that when it's finished, it's going to be awesome.
So it sounds like a big passion project for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully early summer. Like I said, we have a lot of mixing engineers and just like recording engineers in the group. So we're going to be doing most of that in-house, which is excellent. And so, yeah, that's coming up. I have done about half of my recording and I have to finish it up, but that's something I'm definitely looking forward to this year.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. This year I have sort of refocused my attention primarily into just performing, whether
Mhm.
it's recording work or performing live, performing with choirs. I love singing in choir. It's like one of my favorite things to do. Because over the past couple years, I've been doing a lot of private piano and voice teaching,
Mhm.
and I love it. But it became a bigger part of my life than I ever expected. I was never intending to be like a teacher.
Mhm.
And so in the new year, I have taken a step away from that and really redirected my energy into what I've always wanted to do all along, which was
Mhm.
just singing. And I love arranging too and doing a little teaching on the side here and there. I work with a couple high school ensembles where I still get to kind of like keep my teaching muscles strong. But the primary passion for me has always been performing. So
Yeah.
I'm really going to dive into that even more in this new year.
Yeah. Awesome. So you're definitely a harmonies girl, I can tell. But it sounds like, so early on in your career, you're doing something that is so smart, which is building a portfolio career where you don't have all your eggs in one basket. You are diversifying what you're doing. You've got teaching, you have session work, you've got, your original projects and live performance, which is so, so incredibly smart because as we learned from the pandemic, things can turn on a dime
Mhm.
and things can go away just as quickly as they came along. So being prepared for that, and just really keeping yourself out there, even if you're just a small part of your focus is in any one of those areas, it's still really smart to do.
Yeah, I feel like that's the only way I can do it. Like I can get very bored very easily, and I
Mhm.
love having lots of different things and lots of different skills that I get to hone and
Mhm.
build. And just seeing how my different skills in different areas kind of bleed over into other things that I do that I wouldn't like, necessarily expect them to be related.
Mhm.
Um, and and I love getting types of skills that aren't necessarily music related from music work, like teaching, for example. I mean, I am definitely imparting my knowledge on the students and all of that, but I'm also learning so much from them and learning so much from the experience of like being the adult in a room full of teenagers and like
Mhm.
what that means and how to properly use that authority in the best possible way. That has been so informative, just like career wise, but also just like as a person, just learning
Yeah.
how to guide people properly and how to gauge what they need in order to be guided in the right direction.
Yeah, you're picking up the professional skills, and I mean,
Mhm.
that even comes down to just customer service and how to deal with,
Right.
the kids' parents and just, how to deal with clientele. It's so important because these are the skills that are gonna transfer over into just about every other avenue that you get into in one way or another, and that's something that I've always, notice with young singers or even those of us that are way further down into our careers. There seems to be a little bit of a, I don't know, almost embarrassment to talk about like side gigs that you might have if like if you're working at Target on the side or you're a barista
Mhm.
or waiting tables or whatever. But I was in the corporate world for a long time, and I've always looked back on that experience as, that was such a great opportunity for me because I picked up an enormous amount of skills that I transferred right over into running my own business as a professional musician, and I wouldn't have changed that for the world. So I think if you just kind of frame that type of work as I do this so that I can do this, it's really a support system for that.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I actually was a barista for like over 4 years. And that was all during college. So I wasn't like truly into my career yet. I was just in school. But as sort of a shy kid, just kind of like growing up and entering adulthood, being thrust into that customer service role, because I worked at a coffee shop. It wasn't like a Starbucks or a coffee. It was Pete's Coffee, if you know Pete's Coffee.
Yeah.
But so they have more of like a customer service angle than even the other big chains do. It's like very important to be interacting with customers constantly. And so that was such an important growing experience for me, because as someone who is like terrified to talk to strangers,
Uh-huh.
now it's my job to talk to strangers and engage with them, especially in a situation where you're like just waiting for your coffee. You probably don't even really want to talk, you know? So that was like a really, really excellent learning experience for me. And I have definitely brought those skills into literally everything else that I've done, just being able to be comfortable in a room with people that I may not necessarily know and be able to find that common ground with people. It's been very, very important.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, as I said a little bit earlier, when you were describing some of the things that you had going on last year and this year, um, it seems as though you're experiencing a really big career already. You have a lot of like big gigs going on and well-established gigs. So if you don't mind, I'd love to step back and go back to the beginning for you. Tell us how you got your start. Are you coming from a musical family, or how did you get started?
I do come from a musical family. More so, I come from just an artistic family.
Mm.
So my mom is actually a studio cellist. She's been working in the studio world for, she probably wouldn't want me to say how many years, but many, many years. She is very established and very well respected. I look up to her very much. She played on like every record in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, now even, and so many movies. And I have learned so much from her model of just like always remaining humble.
Mm.
She is one of the most humble people and is so grateful for every single gig that she gets still, even like so many decades into her career and being so established. She could so easily take things for granted, but she never does, because she
Yeah.
always feels so blessed to get everything. And that has been really important for me to see.
Wow.
Yeah, and my dad was an actor. So I had both of those, and then I have my family is kind of crazy. My dad was an actor and also a bit older, so I was the 10th of his kids. He had many
Wow.
kids over many years. I know. In my family unit, it was the four of us, me, my two brothers, and my sister. And then I have a bunch of older half siblings that are also in the industry. I have a sister that's a very successful actress, and a brother that's a very successful videographer. It's like everybody is sort of working in the industry one way or the other, whether they're performing or sort of doing things on the back end.
Mhm.
But so in my immediate family unit, one of my brothers is an opera singer. He sings in Tonality with me, actually, and sings a lot with LA Master Chorale and does lots of session gigs around town. My other brother is a visual artist. So it's kind of funny. He's like the black sheep of the family just because he's not a musician.
Uh-huh.
But he's still like very entrenched in the art world, and he runs a
Mhm.
very successful art school.
Mhm.
And my sister is also a singer. She's in a band called Gems. And she does some session work as well here and there, but singer songwriter. So we all do something related to the arts, mostly music. But yeah, we were all put into piano lessons at a very young age. And I was actually the one that stuck with piano specifically the longest. Most of my other siblings either branched out to other disciplines of art or other instruments, but I took piano lessons for like 13 years.
Mhm.
And I credit that with a lot of my just like musical wherewithal and ability, just because having that keyboard in your head when you're really in any musical setting, like sight reading, or whether you're like on a session or singing in a choir, just like being able to have that sort of frame of reference is so helpful.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I've been singing since I was little, like as long as I can remember. I never really took any serious sort of singing lessons until very close to the end of high school. And even then, it was kind of few and far between. I took some singing lessons in college as well. I wasn't a vocal major, I was actually a media composition major at CSUN, which is a very unique major. I knew that I wanted to sing primarily, but I didn't necessarily want to go the completely classical route. I love classical singing, but it's not really my primary. Didn't really want to like go the LA opera direction necessarily. So I got to have a vocal emphasis and get voice lessons and be able to still improve classically while taking classes like film scoring and jazz arranging. It's one of my favorites. And lots of music theory and just like really diving into the theoretical side of things and sort of sharpening my arranging and composing tools in my toolkit while still singing a lot and doing my lessons and also singing in the choir and singing in the a cappella group. I music directed the a cappella group, and that's when I got into arranging for voices. So yeah, all of the stuff that I was doing in college, kind of like doing some composing but really like mostly focusing on all the singing stuff that I was doing, that kind of naturally led into post-college, just like joining choirs, auditioning for choirs, seeking out session work, networking, just getting to know people. And the pandemic hit so I graduated college in 2019, so right before everything.
Wow.
In May 2019. And so it's kind of funny. I was a barista from the very beginning of college in 2015 up until February 2020.
The
month, yeah, the great before. So my birthday's in February, and I basically like gave myself the birthday gift of leaving my barista job and just diving headfirst completely into music. Because finally by then I felt like I had enough things going on, enough hats were spinning, that I could support myself just with music. And so it was great for a month. And then the pandemic hit. And it's so funny. It almost seems like a completely different life now. I don't know if other people feel that way, but totally. It was such a unique time. That's putting it nicely. But I still kept up music as much as I could. I was getting a few remote things here and there. I feel like most singers never want to do a remote like box singing recording video ever again. Lots of those. And as things have started to open up again, I've just been like really pedal to the metal and just trying to build a career and a life that I love. And I'm a total workaholic, so it's come naturally to me to just like do all the things all at once. That kind of brings us to this year, now that we're a couple years out of the pandemic. Now I'm trying to find that balance again of like, yes, it's great to work hard, but you also want to have time for yourself, and you want to feed into your mental health and physical health and all of those things, because definitely can't take those things for granted. But I think I will never be able to completely stop being a hard worker, because that's it's just in my blood, I guess. That's another thing I've kind of gotten from my mom too, just like seeing her relationship with work and also her success in the industry. It's like she loves it so much that she just like, of course she's gonna hustle to do as much as she can and say yes to as many things as she can, because she wants to do it. She loves it. So that's kind of how I feel too.
Yeah, I think it's a very valuable characteristic to have in this business, to have that inner hustle, because you really, you have to generate that work on your own, and you've got to stay on so many radars at any given time that, I think it's a good quality, as long as you are, taking care of yourself as well.
Right.
Speaking of that, I'm really glad that you mentioned about coming through the pandemic and, what's been learned from that. And I think it's so funny because during the pandemic, when I'm interviewing singers, we're reflecting on what does all this mean? And a common, insight was that, oh my God, I was like totally burning myself out before all this hit. And I'm so glad in a way that it did, because now it kind of gives me this break. And once things open up and I go back again, I'm going to really have this balance in life. I'm going to practice self-care. I'm going to slow down. And what I saw happen was, as soon as gigs started becoming available, we like ravenously just started like pulling it's yes, yes, yes to everything,
Yeah.
just to kind of get ourselves going again. And inevitably, you kind of jump back into that pace of life. Um, with that said, though, I still think there are so many lessons that we learned and did bring over. And maybe balance is one of it for a lot of us. But what do you think is either a top lesson you learned, or a few things that you've brought over since then?
Um, I mean, I guess one of the biggest overarching lessons is that you can't take anything for granted. Like
Yeah.
I always knew that, and I feel like we all know that. But then
Mhm.
something happens where things that you never considered that you wouldn't be able to do, like be in the same room as people,
Mhm.
let alone sing together, literally just be in the same room as other people. Like I just I had never considered that that wouldn't be an option. I feel like a lot of
Mm.
people can say the same. So it just like it brings another level of gratitude
Mhm.
to everything that we get to do. I think that's kind of why, as soon as gigs started coming back, people were so ravenous to get back. It's because like we were so starved for so many of the best things about life for so long, like being around other people, communing, singing together. If you're a singer, singing together. There's so few experiences that are like singing with other people. It's so special. And so to me, it totally makes sense why me and pretty much every musician was just like clamoring to get back into
Yeah.
gigging as much as possible, because we realized, oh my God, we had been taking this for granted. And now that we get to do it again, like I just want to do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that sense of gratitude has been the biggest lesson, and something that I'm really trying to keep holding on to as things start to feel more and more normal for longer periods of time.
Mhm.
It's really easy to forget the lessons that you learn, but I'm just trying to keep that with me.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. It really does. It does make you feel a greater sense of enthusiasm for what you've been doing all along, but now it's just at a different level. It means so much more,
Mhm.
especially just the family and friendship aspects of it. I totally agree with that. But speaking of taking for granted and being stopped in your tracks, you mentioned at the top of our talk that you have had to deal with cancer at a very young age. Um, do you mind telling us how that entered into your young world and how that's transpired over the past couple of years for you?
Yeah, so obviously it was very unexpected, as it is for many people. Last Not last year, the year before last year now, maybe even like technically the fall before that, so fall 2020, I felt like a lump in my neck, like at the base of my neck, and I was like, "Yeah, that's weird." And so I got it checked out, and my doctor was like, "It's probably like a cyst or something," because like usually it is, right?
Mhm.
Especially when you're so young, and I'm like healthy otherwise. So like,
Yeah.
why are they going to think anything different? But he was like, "Keep your eye on it." And I felt like it was kind of changing over time. So I was like, I feel like there's a greater story here.
Mm.
I ended up having to go through sort of multiple different biopsies and like seeing different doctors. And finally, I so it was like on a Monday, I think, that I had to get my final biopsy. It was like a surgical biopsy. They removed an entire lymph node. They realized that it was something having to do with the lymph nodes, but they weren't sure if it was cancer or not.
Mhm.
So they had to remove an entire one to be able to like test it fully. And so I did that on a Monday, and then on Wednesday I was driving to Arizona to do a gig. So this like I've worked with this choral ensemble called Quartz Ensemble in Arizona a couple times. They're awesome. They perform with the AZ Phil. And so I was in Arizona by myself, doing
Mm.
this gig and just like staying with someone in the community. They had like put us up with community members, which was cool. But I was on this crazy life moment. I was on this beautiful hike because it was in this like, it was not the typical Arizona you might expect. It was like kind of the Big Bear of Arizona. It was up in the mountains, and I was on this beautiful scenic hike. I was literally in the middle of taking a panoramic picture, and I get a call from one of the doctors, the ear, nose, and throat doctor that I've been working with, telling me that it in fact was Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I'm like on this beautiful hike, just like soaking in the beautiful wonders of the world. And then I get this call. And of course, this happens when I'm like alone in another state, right? So yeah, so I immediately was like on the phone to my mom. Obviously, like my whole family knew what was happening, but we hadn't had answers until that moment. Luckily, my mom and brother were planning to drive up for the concert to Arizona the next day anyway. So thankfully, I was able to see them the next day and just have family around me. So it was a few weeks and a few tests later that I was finally able to get an actual diagnosis, because they knew what it was, but they needed to determine like my stage, just kind of, and just figure out a treatment plan from there. So I was stage 3A, which means that so the lymphoma had spread past my diaphragm, but it was still very small, which is why it was 3A. So I was able to get a chemo plan that wasn't too harsh. Obviously, chemo is harsh, but was able to avoid radiation altogether, which was excellent. And my chemo plan took about 6 months, all told. So that was basically halfway through 2021 to the end of 2021. So that's kind of why I said that year sort of became about just like getting through it. And it was such a crazy time, because like when I was just getting all the biopsies and everything, I remember being like really annoyed because I would have to, in order to recover from the biopsy, I wouldn't be able to work out for like a week or something. And I had just started this new workout program with my friend, and I was like annoyed that I was going to be off track with our workout program. And it's just like the things you worry about. And then of course, like you just gain these whole new levels of perspective. And I feel like gaining perspective like that at such a young age can be such a blessing and a curse, because it's like so many people my age have not had to deal with this. And so maybe they don't have the level of perspective that I have, and the ability to kind of like look outside themselves and see the bigger picture. But at the same time, they didn't have to deal with what I had to deal with, and that sucked. And so in some ways, I kind of envy them for that. And there's like a level of innocence that maybe they might still have and that I may have lost. But at the same time, the grass is always greener, and everyone has their things that they've gone through in life that have changed them, and made them wiser, taught them lessons. So it was really wonderful to see the outpouring of love that I got from, of course, family members, but also people that I may not even have known very well, but like were really moved by just the fact that I had to go through this, and the strength that they perceived me having, and just really wanted to extend their support. People that were like, literally anything at all that you need, please reach out to me. It doesn't matter what time of day, I like any way that I can help you. Like people just really want to help. And so that was really beautiful to see. And I really did feel very, very supported while all that was going on. But I finished chemo in October of 2021. And since then, I've been getting my scans, and I've been clear, and I'm good. Thankfully. So this past year has just been, like I said, just kind of like unpacking all of it. Tonality actually just had a concert in early December. All of our concerts are sort of focused on some sort of like social justice topic. And this concert was about healthcare and healing. So it's just like exploring the different experiences that people have with the healthcare system. And in all of our concerts, a few, maybe 2 to 4 members of the choir that have a very personal connection with the topic of the concert, write up a little blurb and speak, sort of just like share their experience. And so I was able to share my experience at this concert and just like get honestly more vulnerable than I ever have outside of like close family members about it, because like most people in my life know about it by now, and I'm not like afraid to talk about it by any means. But the process of healing from something like that is like, there's a lot of anger that comes along with it,
Right.
because you get very resentful, or at least I did. Just resentful that this is happening to you, you know, like it shouldn't happen to anyone, but
Yeah.
it's like, it just comes out of nowhere. And there can be a lot of mixed emotions. And just like, I don't know, just reconciling that you will never be the same person that you were before you went through all that.
Mm-hmm.
And the loss of trust in yourself, like your own body. Because like,
Okay.
yeah, I actually had a very affirming conversation with my primary care doctor when I had my first physical post chemo, where he said something that I hadn't really verbalized in my own head, but had been feeling, which is that from now on, it will be very difficult to trust that any little thing that happens with you is just some little thing. Like I used to be able to just trust that. And now I know that like that little thing that you thought was nothing could be something really big. So it's like this strange loss of trust in your own body that you don't really feel until it's gone.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been rebuilding that, because you don't want to live in like a sort of panic mindset about it, because that doesn't help anything. But yeah, it's I've definitely grown as a person. And it's strange to feel like it's already over a year now that I've been out of treatment, because when I was in it, it felt like forever. And in some ways it feels like it just happened. But the farther away from it I get, the more I'm able to just like feel okay again, and just like focus on my healing and sort of work through all the feelings that I had about it, because I didn't really have the emotional space to work through those while I was just trying to survive it.
Yeah.
But my therapist has been amazing. My friends and family have been amazing. My partner has been amazing. And I'm just so grateful to have so many wonderful people in my life that are so supportive at all times. My mom really sprung into action when all this happened. She drove me to like nearly every single appointment, was always there with me, sitting with me through those long chemo sessions, just always willing to be there and help me. So yeah, it really helped a lot of my relationships grow in an interesting way. So I'm grateful for that aspect for sure.
Yeah. Wow, Hannah, I'm so glad to see you on this side of it. I'm happy for you, of course. Congratulations for that. And thank you for sharing that. That's, that's a tough place to go, but I know that there's so many people struggling that I know will, get a lot from hearing that experience from you. And I just, hearing you talk about what you've had to process even on the other side of this, and what this all means for you as you kind of continue on with your life, and how you're going to look at things. It is as though you're looking through life at a different lens all of a sudden. And this is COVID, then cancer, then, so early on. Those are two major traumatic, events. And I can see how, there's good to be gleaned from it, but then I'm sure, there's still the ongoing, things to overcome and struggle with. But yeah, having that, I've always felt there's a strength in not being able to cakewalk through life. It does seem so freaking unfair. And, I think many of us have those things where we look around and you're just like, why me? Why do I have to struggle with it? Seems like everybody else is just kind of skating. Why do I have to deal
Yeah.
with this? But, when you do overcome certain things, there are things to be pulled from that to kind of pull you through the future. And you've got a unique perspective now to bring into life that, nobody else is going to understand. And
Very.
I hope that it serves you very well throughout your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think it already has started to, because I just feel like I in some ways I feel so unfazable
Mhm.
because like I don't know, I am in my mid-20s, so I have a lot of friends who are also in their mid-20s, already kind of freaking out about like, "Oh my god, I'm not where I thought I was gonna be by this age. I haven't done this and this and this, and I'm so behind." I'm like, "Yeah, but you get another day
Yeah.
to try and
Yeah.
to work towards that." Some people don't get another day. So,
Mhm.
like, it's as simple as that. Not to invalidate, because I feel that way sometimes too, and that is such a valid way to feel.
Yeah.
Um, but the next step after that is remembering how lucky
Mhm.
you are to get another day to work towards your goals and build the life that you wanna have.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm so glad your peers are lucky to have you to, remind them of that. That's so true. And as someone in their 40s, it is. I kind of chuckle a little listening to someone at 25, like, oh, I should have
Yeah,
done so much with my life, and
yeah. No, it's silly.
knowing what's to come. But
Yeah.
yeah. Oh gosh. Well, thank you again for sharing all that with
Yeah.
us. I want to make sure that, we touch on, you did mention some things that you've got coming up here in the future. Um, you're from the Roots group. You have an album in the works right now. You're
Mhm.
thinking conservatively summertime, maybe that it's going to be coming out. Where's
Yeah.
the best place for people to check out your music? Where would you like them to go to connect with you?
Well, you can listen to some of the performances that we already have out, um, on YouTube at From the Roots. We also do already have an album out. It's covers, but it's all original arrangements, and it's
Okay.
all of us singing. So if you go on Spotify, Apple Music, believe those are probably the best places to find it. It's From the Roots. The album is called Eyes of Love. We have a couple additional singles on there, but that's one of our biggest projects that we have out,
Mhm.
in addition to YouTube and stuff. Our Instagram is, I believe, From the Roots Band.
Okay.
So people can follow that for updates. Um, my website is hannahroselewis.com. So on there, it's mostly, it has like my vocal reel and my CV and like things that I've done, more information about me and my contact, but it also has a few videos and things of performances that I've done. Um, so you can always find some more stuff on there. Yeah, those are the main places, I think.
That's great. I went ahead and added all of those links into the comments,
Okay.
and it sounds like you've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. I'm excited for you. I'm going to absolutely check out From the Roots and see what's going on there, as well as your vocal reel. I'm so curious to listen to it. But before I let you go for the evening, um, I know we've touched on so much of this already because you really have had to overcome so much, but can you close us out with telling us what makes you unstoppable?
I think what makes me unstoppable is my passion for music and also just my belief in myself,
Mhm,
as everyone experiences self-doubt, and I think sometimes a little bit of self-doubt can be healthy.
mhm,
But I do believe so strongly in my heart and my abilities and what I can bring to the table. And I think that is crucial just in life in general, but also in the music industry, the entertainment industry as a whole. You need to be very confident in your abilities and the value that you can provide. And I think over the years, I have really just kind of progressed into that role of just like being my biggest advocate and of course remaining humble 100%. I know there's
mhm.
always going to be a million people that can sing me under the table, but nobody can sing exactly the way that I can.
Yes.
And that's true for everybody.
Yeah.
So I just really try to lead with that and support the parts of me that are truly unique, and be my biggest advocate, like I said, because you always have to be your biggest supporter. So I think that's what makes me unstoppable, is that I really believe in myself and I believe that I can do so many things. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I love that about you. I love that for you. And I have truly loved our conversation. Thank
Me
you
too.
so much for joining me tonight. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I will be watching behind the scenes and rooting for you as all these exciting things unfold for you. And thank you to everybody that joined us live tonight. I will be back here next week at the same time with a new guest. And we'll have some more great conversations. But until then, I'll let you go, Hannah, and we'll say goodnight to everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.